The Tibetans do have a habit of owning their books, I've heard. Oh, thanks for this drum. Half of those that magically showed up. I called Anthony. Where's Ken?
Good morning.
A hungry ghost, where's Ken? No Ken? Okay, so I'll do my best, Ken. I don't know the number, let's see. Oh, yeah, there you go. Your knowledge.
I need to find it in English, though. Okay. So, the Heart Sutra. Thus I heard, at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Vulture Peak Mountain, with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the high standards and their natural entities. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, how should some of the lineage trained who wishes to follow the practice of our contractions wisdom? Thus he spoke, and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, answered Venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five standards should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form also is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn, unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight and so on, until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so on, until no old age and death, no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All Buddhas who dwell in the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as the truth and not deceptive. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. They are Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisattva. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva, Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. And then the blessed one rose from that samadhi and said to the bodhisattva, Mahasattva, noble Bodhisattva, he has spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught. And the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One has said this, the Venerable Shariputra, a noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. What's next? Homage to Manjushri, which is
Next page, 10.
let's see. 10, okay. Namalan Ganpo Gatsun Jantel Yanlan Jatsel Angel Lodo Dinir Nidrananda Ratsel Jenir Dhamon Nidin Sikir Nidir Duhar Pansin Gandhar Sikir Samramare Medon Dunya Jizare Rogo Gula Pajiv Latse Yala Dushu Yandenso Droda Chedro Nyumon Nirvon Leje Jadron Dudejing Mare Meza Dunya Nyuku Jenye Jude Radrina Dine Dajin Sajud Atson Yede Luto Jade Tuo Juda Judan Juni Jende Dalu Meze Jade Yamal Om Arabasana Di Om Arabasana Di Om Arabasana Di Sedan Cheji Chera Vosati Dalu Dino Mabarasane Kada Dinju Julu Tobayi Lodro Pobe Namasalu. Mandala offering.
Page 18.
Oh, page 18, okay, short one.
What page is it? 18.
18. Where's it from? Oh,
Your pages are
but
different.
pages are different.
Okay, I got the wrong one.
Oh, do you have the right one?
So far it's from them.
So she put the issue.
Yeah. Oh, do you have short?
Short one,
Here.
oh, okay.
Is
This is page 16.
16?
The short mandala offering. Sachet Pokier
Choje me do ram rira leje nye de jamali sanje yendu me de do vaye rogo nanda jela jebo ayo
Jetson
lama damba jena je chöki kala jete tete ne jeta tambe leje demala Gaje Chuje Jogo
Idam Guru
Rana Mandala Gandhi Adayami
Sachet Pokier. Which is now Sangi Chodan
Choje Jonam Janjo Badu Dani Jasoji Dāgī chūcī jībē sōnāñjī, rālā bēcī sāñjī rūpūrāyī sō. Chūdā tōcī chūnāngā, jāñchū pārdū dāni jāsōchī. Dāgī chūcī jībē sōnāñjī, rālā bēcī sāñjī rūpūrāyī sō.
Sanje Jordan,
Tōjī chūnāngā, jāñchū pārdū dāni jāsōchī. Dāgī chūcī jībē sōnāñjī, rālā bēcī sāñjī rūpūrāyī sō. Gēgā khabat lēgā.
all right.
No sound.
No sound, no smell, no taste.
Wait a minute.
No tap, no sound.
No sound, no smell, no taste.
Yes. No can, no sound.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, how to turn it on? I can imagine. Let's see, is there a switch there that says on and off?
It should be. There should be something that says on and off.
Let's see. Imagine one of those transformers has to be on. Let's see. Let's see. I don't know the system. Is it power?
타면도
My phone.
그 타면도 나기는 있죠. 타면도 뒷면도 납사사는 그대로.
Turn the volume, did they turn the volume down? Where's the cables come on? We'll have to do this old school, you'll have to yell all night.
Yeah, we'll do that.
We're gonna move in really close.
So I can, it's strictly fine. Yeah, many of it.
No can, no sound. Sorry.
Yeah. If you don't hear, just let me know. I'll just-
Yeah, I can hear.
Normally, my voice is not loud. Oh, there you go.
Alice,
Okay, try it again.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought you're the man.
No. I moved the panel forward and whatever happened, I
Yeah,
didn't touch anything, I just looked at it.
Still, you're the man.
Yeah, I'm the man. Just keep saying that. No belief, no belief. I'm student. Seriously.
아무도 가지 투니 쇼고. 스가기 쇼는 계속 뭐 저한테 얘기해 대도 안 나. 나한테 다들이 쇼고 상견나. 류지 다바 강시나. 다가지 무슨 거서래. 제가 로도 상견나 내지 쇼신 지문주 대다 상제 누구야. 녀목기는 지문주를 쓰다 손스가지. 배다 되니. 다들이서도 쉬어야 돼. 류지 다바 강시나. 대단 녀모 나중이 조사 지지 손수도 매번에는 룰루스 대처가 시작도 만드셔 줘야지.
So we just covered, we discussed during our, our last sessions, the verse 18, which is just as grain, when grain is, so just as when grain is covered by grass, it becomes diseased and doesn't grow. In the same way, the sprout of Buddha doesn't grow if it is covered by reactive emotions. We have discussed this during our last session. So today we will be discussing on the verse 19, where the verse where we read. What is the purification of the body? It is clearing away violations and reactive emotions through the essential meaning of the fully awakened Buddha's teachings. that if you make no effort to go to the lower realms.
다들 너무 생긴 것이 뇌에 답을 강시 나세 뇌에 답아서 간데 들라고 그래서 이나스라고 뇌에 답아 다 뇌에 답아서 돼 가지고 거네야 아니 뇌 동화 아니 소화 답아 빼와서 들려이는 답아서 돼 제상 뇌에 답아 강시 나서 뭐 뇌에 답아서 간데 들라고 그래서 이나스라고 그래.
So here the question it asks right on the first line of the verse 19 where it says, what is the purification of the body? So when it comes to this question, so it is again relating to the verse 4 that we discussed during our last teachings, where it says giving out all giving away to all sentient beings, your body, your position, and your body gain, your good gain in the past, present, and future, and protecting, purifying, and enhancing. So here now, at this point, we are talking about the purification of what is meant by, purifying one's body, or the purification of the body.
단디 요즘 뭐 드가 녀만나 좋아이 있어야 또 좋대. 르 답아서 간에 질라고나 아니 뒷바당 녀모 벤남바데가 좋아야 돼. 약간 뒷바당 아니 녀모니데 아바 답아지 봐봐. 대남바가 좋아지 봐지래. 아니 르 답아서 그래서.
So answer is given right after that by saying it is clearing away all vile actions and reactive emotions. In other words, giving away, one's actions or negative actions and reflective emotions. That is what it means.
텐데 대바도 녀모 벤남바 좋은서 대양. 하다 보면 상지지 아니 라도가 내 숨바나시 다라 소소 나네지 바다지네.
So then it says, if this is the case, how do we really clear away, or how do we really eliminate these actions, negative actions, and negative emotions? And where it says, through the essential meaning of the fully awakened Buddha's teachings, which means one can, by means of engaging in the practice and listening to the teachings of the Buddha, or the Dharma, in other words, will clear away or eliminate one's negative actions and negative emotions.
텐데 야도 저 상지를 숨바나시 최연도 소소가 매주 침보지 돈이 나들 맞죠 이나 데레 도와데 나와이나 아니 멤버를 그래서.
So then it says, it requires an effort. Without putting an effort, just by listening to the teachings and not putting an effort to practice, then one will not be able to clear away one's negative actions and negative emotions. As a result, one will not be able to again state of enlightenment, but rather one may fall into a lower realm.
다들 승리도 보지. 다 되는 거 이용도 뭐 뇌제다와 강해나서 뇌제다와서 뇌세야데 말도 된다게 셔러를 좀 뇌장에 상탄 거 말고 사비 공부지래 뇌 사비 공부리에 뇌스라고 그래. 다 봐서야 되다 모두 돌아오는 게 잡아 요에는 대바야 보여 주니 잡아 다 삼아서야 줘라. 저 된다 전에 다 봐서 다저상 된다게 다 봐서 간대질라고 그래서 와이나 조금도 다 보여야 돼.
So here now, what needs to be purified? How do we purify our body? So how do we purify our body? So when we talk about just purification of the body, one should not merely think of the body alone, the physical body that we have. Rather, it also talks about how do we how do we actually cleanse one's mind too? It is therefore it says by clearing away negative actions and reactive emotions or the afflictive emotions, one will be able to purify one's body as well as one's mind.
다들 이제 뒷바스에 간다 질라고 뉴몬스에 간다 질라고 다 동부 거 다바지와라 뒷바다 뉴몬이 되고 뭐 저거 이제 뒷바스에 되지다 안 되지다 만다 저래 또 디보로 지시면 뒷바스에 돼 자왕 내버지기 미래다 자왕 내버지기 미 뒷바스.
So what is meant by negative actions? So here it says the vile actions. In Tibetan, what is we call it dipa, which means the volitional act. That is what it meant by. So this need to be purified. And how do we purify this?
자왕 내버스에 간다 질라고 그러나 타고 뒷바스에 자왕 내버지기 미래라로 다 자왕 내버스에 간다 질라고 하는 거는 자왕 내버스에 자와드 상바라 때니 소설은 디베 두네지 그런구나 된데 두네지 자와다 자왕 내버스라고.
So how do we identify that one's action is non-virtuous or one's action is negative actions? So this can be identified by the experiencing of result. If the result is by engaging in such certain actions, and due to these actions, if one experiences the result as a suffering as a result, then that is negative actions.
근데 자왕 내버드 상도 류도의 자왕 내버드 상요래 마우도의 자왕 내버드 상요래 소 예지도의 자왕 내버드 상요래.
So when it comes to negative actions, it is not only the negative actions can be created by one's body, but also negative actions of body, speech, and mind as well.
류도의 자왕 내버드 상 저라바 지쇼에는 이해를 나죠 어느 가르소래 바로 그 생각만 tanda yuwa na ju chobo te yana koda chi maa to ni paru paliya tsutsubo la yana koda ni naa bi salo to ni paru paliya chi neba chi di kono taba wata so di le ta maa yeso la teni chui chawa nge pare.
So let's take an example of what kind of actions are said to be the negative actions of the body, speech, and mind. Here, in a very simple way, that we all experience that when we are unhappy with certain individual, we have a tendency of giving them a look, and the very look makes other person uncomfortable. And that is a very simple example of negative actions of the body, which is very relevant to all of us. And then also the negative actions of actions of the speech is just yelling out at someone or expressing expressing a harsh words to someone. That is the negative actions of the speech, and the negative actions of the mind is that one cultivates a certain motivations, which motivations of inflicting harm upon others in any way. So all this are the actual example of what is meant by negative actions of the body, speech, and mind.
자와 zambol을 뛰니 내바셔야 돼. 자와 zambol을 뛰니 자와 내바셔야 돼. 줘야 돼. 맞아요. 자와 zambol을 맞으면 자와 내바스니 봐줘야 돼. 저도 하는 거지. 릴레이 주요로 돼요. 말이야.
So here when we speak about negative actions is not something that independently become negative actions. Negative action become negative actions in comparison to the positive actions. independent upon our positive actions, in other words.
다 된다고 비서가 저 zambo스야데 간에 저나 자와데 삼바르 때니 아니 라니리아 근데 대체 무슨 좀 봐. 아니 대 좀비 리스네 봐. 되네지래 자와 zambo스라고.
So what is meant by wholesome actions and what is meant by wholesome actions, the virtuous actions, is by engaging in such actions, if one experiences happiness as a result, and that is what we call wholesome actions or the virtuous actions.
제가다 라니르 대주 중에 자와들라 자와 zambo. 라니르 동안 중에 자와들라 자와 멤버스라고.
So in other words, in short, that action that give rise to suffering is said to be the negative actions. Actions that give rise to happiness is said to be the positive actions or virtuous action.
라니르 대주 중에 자와 zambo다 동안 중에 자와들라 자와 멤버 러브에 주제 가르나 소소 라니 가르라지 현지에서 아니 대전 되면서 동안 멤버가 이미 차니 된다고 차니
So these are called negative actions and positive actions because why those actions that give rise to unhappiness is said to be the negative actions is because we long to achieve happiness, right? We have innate, aspiration to achieve happiness. So none of us have a desire for suffering. So therefore, the negative actions and positive actions is differentiated on the basis of the result that we experience.
제가 제가 zambo스를 보고도 야보스 그러나 근데 제가 멤버들 두어서 그러나 제가 야와도 두어서 제가 zam보다 멤버 쓰자데 라니 데비 대체다 데비 동에다 데니 지들 zam보 지들 멤버 지들 야보 지들 아니 두어서 도스니시 다이거로
So this actions of negative actions or the positive actions are very much, related to one's own motivations or one's own mind.
데레이드 제가 zam보들 되니 제가 멤버를 되니 zam보 대양 라니 데비 대체다 데비 동안 되니 도서는 zam보다 멤버스 아주 도서가 토빅과 도스다니 샤유 거라마도 그러면이 제가 멤버 이세로 제가 zam보 이세 방문이 주도가 되는 주요 말이에요.
However, whether this is positive actions or the negative actions, and both of those positive and negative actions are not actually exist by its own side. They are not established by its own side. They are not, established, self-character. They are not self-characterized, existence, but rather they are merely, designated or imputed by one's thoughts and concept.
제가 소설을 야보 증을 주는데 야보도 써도 소설을 강의 증을 주는 거 야보도 써도 제가 근데 라니 배받아 문제 받더니 아니 야보도 그것도 써라요 도시네.
So then one thing that we always say that someone who is being good to me, which means someone who is doing something to oneself in accordance with one's desire, and someone who is not good to me is someone who is engaging in actions that are not, corresponding to what one desire.
제가 다 뒷당하셔야 돼. 저 뒷당하시는 뒷부야는 지발에 근데 저항에 받쳐야 근데 뒷당하세요.
So that is the result by the actions that give rise to the suffering, give rise to suffering is said to be the deepa or the negative actions.
다들 뒷부에 말해서 뭐뭐 사설에 뒷부에 뭐뭐 사설에 그냥 저 탐험해 봐니 다다 바들에 말해서다 지금 미시 바나 밤에 배다 유명하게 자왕에 뭐 뭐지 령아 예선자 돈에 자왕에보다 장에 봐 무슨 도스 루차래 제가 다니는데 저도 봐 안에 그래서 그래 다 받지고 그래.
So now So this negative actions that we have been engaged from beginning this time up until now, from the body, speech, and mind, because of our unknowing or not knowing or ignorance, we have engaged in all kind of actions of the body, speech, and mind from the beginning of this time. Innumerable negative actions from the beginning of this time up until now. So this is what we need to be purified.
저는 류지 거리면서 디범 보사요리 나군 디범 보사요리 이주군 디범 보사요리다 류지 거리 디버사다 맞아 저 바든 류지 집에 거리네 지 감바 원래 버시 뭐고 소주라서 데려가 토니 디범 보사요리 테나지 여기 해드네 집에 거리야 아니 소소기 시당 만들고 토니 바로 버려야 생활에 집에 소야가 되는 기자 되는 뭐 것이 있어요 아니 소소 예지권이야 전대세를 타도를 맞아를 뇌차라서 뭐보면서 뭐문도 제사로 제타서마데 되고자래.
So we have engaged in these negative actions of the body, speech, and mind from the beginning of this time up until now. Just look at ourselves and to see there are many negative actions, either intentionally or unintentionally. Unintentionally, we are we're into, engaging in actions of negative actions of the body, such as unintentionally, when we were walking somewhere, we maybe accidentally step on some insects, and then we were actually killing the insects by not knowing, unknowingly. However, we also accumulate certain negative karma by doing that. And furthermore, we also we engage in negative actions of the speech by saying something that is offensive to others. We have been doing that from beginning this time up until now. Even if you think about it, when one single day that you may not recall that you have not used that word that is not offensive to others. So then also negative actions of the mind is particularly, we have all kind of negative actions of the mind. This is within us. We are enriched by those negative actions of the mind, such as sense of competitiveness, jealousy, attachment, hatred, and so on. So those negative actions that we have taken in the past are actually, remained in our continuum, as a form of imprint or as a form of latency. Since the latency is already present in our continuum, then at a very, slightest, the condition is met with this latency, then those negative, the latency that kept by those negative thoughts will then become manifest. So what is meant by nyomon in Tibetan, which is direct translation from Galatia or Sanskrit, which is translated in Tibetan. So in English as afflictions sometimes, and some translators will translate as a delusion. And what is meant by delusion and what is meant by collision? It is a mental factor that, becomes a contributory factor for giving rise to unsubdued or unpacified state of mind.
nyamosene marozo dunga yon chuje dunga cheje ju to ranje bena dunga demba cheje ne kunju demba sumudo achaza kunju demba dia da leje kunju nyombe kunju nire chaza da nyombe kunju sede nyamara dara nase bachena mobore tane to da nyine neshe sa tane to na ya ndo sha da konro da maje to so yede ajire.
So then, this reflections or the kalesha is the main source which give rise to suffering, right? And which give rise to suffering, and then which we can also call as a suffering giver or the origin of sufferings. But when it comes to the origin of suffering, then there are two kinds: origin of suffering of karma and origin of suffering of delusions. And when it comes to delusion or the infections, there are of many divisions, such as 6 root afflictions and 20 secondary afflictions.
Today, in the Samade, Tam Maru Jur Soso Jure, Debbie Lex in a Soso Jututo Yure, and then Yuma in a Soso Jure, Yuma in the Jura, Chazan, so you did that Abade, Debata, Yumapa, Navajoyan, Soso Jure Yudiagi, Debata, Yuma Navajoyan, Mato, she would joke it in the Deban Yumpati, and Jatuaki Yomari.
So all of those negative thoughts and emotions, such as 6 root afflictions and 20 secondary afflictions, are all within us, because we are the possessor of all those negative thoughts and emotions. Similarly, we are the possessor of the latency kept by our negative actions of the past. So when we talk about purifying one's body, we're not only just talking about just cleansing one's physical body, but we're talking about our latency kept by our negative actions, as well as our negative thoughts and emotions that we talked about earlier, about 6 root afflictions and 20 secondary afflictions. So when it comes to the purification of those negative thoughts and emotions and the karma, we're not talking about that we're actually purifying the negative karma and the delusions of other person, but we're talking about those that is within us need to be purified.
The name do that, to me, the Tsurig, Tinsu Chabatamba, so the Jogi, the Nyumaba Jani, and also Ya Sanjiko, Todiachi, Red, the name do Chumdi Sumana here, and then do it to Machagi Masala Sanaje, so Jogi, that the Baranyoma, Sabana Bajan, so Kicheto, Chegugo, Matashi, and that would Jogi, the Baranyoma said, and then Tomato Junina, Tosajini, Chagasia, Yomasundoa, Tendu, Soso Jogo the Matashin, that Jogo, Takasan, much about the rain and origin in Musa and Remoto, Juni, Soso Jogo, the Goranyum, the Soso Tabachiamato, she jogged the Goranyum said, and then Yanaga Tabachi to Yomari.
So it is all those great beings of the past, including Buddha Shakyamuni, and all those the sublime beings who have attained, state of enlightenment, have purified their own mind, purified their own negativities, and attained state of enlightenment, or liberation, or the state of liberation and state of enlightenment. And we cannot, purify the negativities of others, nor we can cleanse the delusion or the affective emotions of others. So it is therefore Buddha has stated that I cannot, overcome the suffering of other beings by, by his hand, by taking the suffering by his hand, nor he can, transfer his realization to other beings. So what the Buddha said was that what he can do is just by giving them a teaching and showing them a path, how they can, how the individual can engage in the practice, which enables them to purify their negative thoughts and emotions and their karma.
Raju Dibara Jumo Nova Joana, and Zola Sanji, the Jolo Joton Sumanaje, Minijola Tabila, the Barana, the Shivacha Sumanaje, and Nege, Lando Nechimanaka Sunjusa, take on Sumanaje, and sort of a Nani, Jenny John Wages.
So therefore, it's that the text says it says. It is through the essential meanings of the fully awakened Buddha's teaching. So by following the teachings of the Buddha, one will be able to purify one's negativities, one's klesha or affections, because it is therefore Buddha has stated that I have shown the path to liberations. But whether you achieve this liberation or not is entirely up to you and entirely it entirely depends on your practice, the purity of your practice.
The name is Sanju Kono, Ranjiba Tadale, Troy, Imichan, Tan, and then Jinjiba to Talakiba, Judeta, and I Yigi, and the Quelle, Nirimeva, and the Pentama, the Tamjigi, to meet the Jimichani, and the Kongi, Ranto Teshiba Telea, and the Loa Maris.
So Buddha, who actually overcome all the fears of his own fear, and Buddha who possesses such a skilled, who is fully skilled and overcoming the fear and suffering of others, and who has equal compassion towards all other sentient beings. Someone who possesses such a quality, the sublime qualities, if one is able to follow a person who has such qualities teaching, then this teaching will never, deceive us.
Beba mena nidoje, that is the best feature, Soso Jevres, Soso Julia, the Baranyom, Pinava Joana, Sanji counts, Mana, Laterjani, and then Kali switcher, Kali Soso Jevres.
So therefore, then it says one should make an effort, effort by following the teachings of the Buddha. In other words, in accordance with the teachings of the Buddha.
The Kali journey, Soso Yabajama doina, and Soso Julia, the Baranyomo, in number Majama Jenny, Hawaina, and Nandron Jevres, Ilu, Bejet, Soso Kali Jenny, and Soso Julia, Masaka Dibata, and then the Yudia Nyum Butsoba, Janto Tavares.
Without putting an effort to practice, to purify all those negativities and afflictions, then those negativities and afflictions will remain within one's continuum as a seed. In other words, as a seed for rebirth in the lower realms.
Tande so Debara Numo number Joa the Carina, and then you will play time when you jump at the Jean Condon Smudo, treat them in Dolly. Tell the Bajuan, treat them in Dolly, 10 days, never treat them in Dolly, Sanji, and so yes, treat them in Dolly. Treat to my ear, not treat the new Treat them in Dolly, and Sanji, Ranju Debata Numade. nipu to yu tsang yu bani, ane shadang chini jangpa la yasa.
So the way we making purification practice purification must be the purification practice must be done on the basis of application of four antidotes. In other words, the four powerful antidotes. So that is the four powerful antidotes is stated in the sutra itself, the teachings of the Buddha himself.
Chuyi dimen dole, chuyi dimen dole. Da chuyi dimen dole, chuyi di kari reza wana, iya kaa hina dita de, namba sun jibi kundu jibi do, nipu kundu jiba na, nipa din dobe do, tenji do, taba nipu do shi dere, jala na jungu so shono no da jina, tomo de tenji do, ane nipu kundu jibi do, ane namba sun jibi do, nipa lar dobe do, sakanda do shi dere.
So this can be done on the basis of application of the four antidotes, such as antidotes of reliance, antidotes of applying actual antidotes towards one's negative deeds, and antidotes of remorse or the regret, and antidotes of committing not to engage in such actions in the future.
근데 근데 쇼는 막 거리셔도 몰래 나버 선집에 또 되셔도 근데 니뭐 군대 집에 또 되셔도 근데 니벌란도 또 되시 다마들 때니 또 송도 이내 난 나중에 저바도 되는 더 뭔가래 때니 또 좋아지 그래.
So in the sutra, it's the sequence of this practice for application of four antidotes is reversed. Because normally when we practice, when we engage in the practice of applying the four antidotes, the four antidotes, first, out of four antidotes, the antidotes of reliance become the first.
때니 또 해야 돼. 가르치려고 그러나 다도 봐. 때니 또 무슨 무슨 정도 서버 안에 정도다. senjenitle 때니 또 쓰라고 해야 돼.
So what is the practice of reliance here? It is reliance upon the practice of taking refuge in rituals and generation of body children.
근데 정도 해야 돼. 군조선이 타반이 아니 레트자와지래야 아니 정도 쓰라고 해.
So what is meant by taking refuge in rituals is by identifying who those objects of refuge are and what those objects of refuge are. One then take refuge from the depth of one's heart.
맨날 저승으로서요. 저승으로 그게 가서 아니 근데 저승으로 얘기다 가서 로 정도 해야 되잖아. 로래 정도 해야 돼. 로래 저승으로서 유지래야 저승으로 가서 지기 아니 저승으로서 되래야 아니 레드제 로지 되어래. 근데 레드제 로지 정도서
It is by identifying the object of refuge and by knowing who those objects of refuge are, and by knowing what those objects of refuge, one then take refuge in rituals.
근데 저승으로서 여들아 문자 공부를 되는 건데 도와주면 오늘 타반 뒤에 가서 오늘 제니 근데 저승으로서 여들아 산시군자 주고자 보니고서 장에 말해.
As we are the followers of the Buddha's teaching, who wish to achieve liberations, and the way we take refuge in ritual is to take object to whom we take refuge is our Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
근데 소장 누역 주는 거는 아니 라리아 산지의 접점과 보스 아니 최대 점유스 미디의 점주는 다 로스네 다만다 가사지 아니 타벨라는 거발라 엔데소한테 텔레만 누는 누도에 비처스 대소다다지 땅에 보고.
So here the three jewels are the object of refuge, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Buddha as the one who teaches us how to free ourselves from samsara as a teacher, and Dharma is actual refuge, would be called actual refuge. By following the teachings of the Buddha, one then attain Dharma within one's continuum by purifying one's negativities and generating path and cessation. And then the Sangha is our companion, the virtuous companion, it says, companion who accompany us when one is on the process of achieving liberations. And someone who long to achieve liberations, and these three object of refuge, practice of taking refuge in these three jewels is indispensable.
다 산지 군조대데 산지 라인 거래 다 간다 드니세가 밤에 산지 라인 거래 최군조대 모란이래 모란이도 뭐 이제 산지 좀 모란이 이거 말거다 토나연 되게 바베줄이네 모란이 요래 제가 최군조이나 드니 산지 얘기를 봐요 말해 근육구조이나 산지 얘기를 봐요 말해 아다 바베 간다지 이나도 거래.
So out of those three jewels, the first jewel of Buddha should be as someone who is enlightened, who actually eliminated the two obscurations, obscuration to liberation and obscuration to omniscience. And when it comes to the Dharma, it is not necessarily the cessation and the path that possessed by the Buddha himself, but also even someone who is unenlightened, someone who is on the path to enlightenment, or in other words, individual who have gained the path of seeing beyond, in others, are possessing this path, and the cessations are also can be identified as an object of Dharma refuge, and also the Sangha. It is not necessarily be the Sangha jewel here, in other words, it's not necessarily be someone who is enlightened, but similar. It also the Sangha jewel is also someone who actually gained the path of seeing and beyond.
제가 견딘 주반 산주 최단 근데 타반도 나지 제가 저 더선을 때니 가르를 잡으나 코알이 잡고 코알이 전에 탑이나야 그거를 제가 산지기 아니 코알이 돌로 돌아다 타바돌로 돌아게 아니 무슨 말안 돼 산지가 나요 거래 뭐네라니 코알이야 전에 탑이나야 뭐라 뭐네 점은서도 추고 좀 말하니 들에 제가 소소가 많이 된바 나서라니 랑주를 많이 된바 제네 되게 아니 거의 저 아니 단지 말이 받들 녀버지네 대방에 엔텔리타네 답이 응원해들라고 줄에 토용으로 근데 용하나 말되는 로능에게 대대게 되는 산지고 수만 나시게 소소가 나들 제네 나네 제네 뭐네 줄에 추고 좀 하게 되겠니 밥이 가다들이야 소소가 뺀다네 뭐 뺀다네 소소가 되나게 라다지 나네 제고.
So therefore, in the 70 stanzas of 70 stanzas of taking refuge in three jewels, the practice of taking refuge in three jewels, where it is stated that Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are said to be the object of refuge, someone who long to achieve liberations. So it is through listening to the teachings of the Buddha, one then not just listening, but not only just listening, but also practicing, following the practice, as it mentioned in the teaching itself. One then achieve path and cessation, which is the Dhamma. And before one achieve the path and cessation, one will be able to look at the examples of the Sangha jewels who actually gone through those practices and achieve the path and the cessations. So it is through this understanding, one see Buddha as someone who teaches us how one can achieve one's path and cessations, and by looking at the examples of the Sangha jewels who actually achieve the path, one then take refuge into Sangha jewels.
제가 다들 지금 미나는 야인지미 저 보셔서 그게 봐요 말이에요. 제가 지대비 아니 라든을 저를 지금 되는 요래. 얘네가 지대비 라든을 저를 지원나 라니 타베는 것도 말이에요. 가르나 저요 그런 타바마도 이제 뭐 엔터 저를 지금 되는 타베는 것도 왜 말. 배나마도 가르쳐나 매지 아니 최초로 지금 캐로가는 때문에 저라 아니 라니 최대 키보드는 주지싱이지 와라와스 라니 주지 마싱이지 아니 얘다 좀 막히는 이제 진짜 도 말아 베드나시 강사시인지 고알에 인 고알이 이 타베라는 거라 라니 타바 더 장애지를 만들라니 고알을 거기 신다 고알 같은 게 타베라는 것도 말해서 어떤 순간
So, if one long to achieve liberations or state of enlightenment, and three object of refuge, in other words, the three jewels are the object to whom we take refuge, and there's no other object of refuge that one could find other than Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. But if one is not, if one doesn't have a desire for achieving, aspiration to achieve liberations and omniscience, then one can take refuge in any gods, worldly gods, and so forth. Because what happened is, if one takes refuge in worldly gods, and by taking the worldly gods, one may gain some certain level of realizations, or one may be able to achieve some kind of superiority by taking refuge into street worldly gods, but it is not possible for one to gain liberations or the state of enlightenment, because the object of refuge to whom we take the object to whom we take refuge itself, him or herself, is not actually liberated from samsara, or not gain the state of enlightenment. So one, by taking refuge in those worldly gods, then liberation and enlightenment is not possible.
다들 내도 무슨 저를 지어도 산지기 수만 나시기 에는 밥이 강다다하게 도저히 나시기 그런 마음이 있네요. 뭐든다 나되는데 에는 요약이 제도 메시지가 되다. 무슨 그런 제고서데 다가서 또 많이 봐야 돼.
Our main effort is practice of taking refuge. It's not something that we cannot achieve those refuge, three jewels within oneself. One ourselves can become object of refuge. But it's not something that we will pick. As we will take refuge in three jewels, or something that we need to take refuge in three jewels, and there's no way that we ourselves cannot. There's no way that one can become those object of refuge. This is not, however, this is not this is, however, it not so. But the reason why we're taking refuge in three jewels is we have an genuine aspiration to become ourselves as the object of refuge, three jewels. It is possible for us to do that. One need to listen to the teachings, following the practice, and particularly the practice of meditation of emptiness and bodhicitta.
다 동반이 모아서서 뭐 당연히 뭐 싫은 이거는 수만 나셔래. 몸에 나면 남에 잼에서 저다 몸에 남에 잼에서 저다 몸에서 그만 남에서 그만 잼에서 그만 이는 물하게 주어면 나라게 주어면 저라게 주어면 도스무도.
So therefore, but talking about emptiness, meditation on emptiness is that we are all familiar with the Heart Sutra. We have been reciting that all the time. In emptiness, there's no eyes, there's no nose, there's no tongue, and so forth. But here now, for one thing that we need to understand, it's not saying that we're not really talking about there's no nose, there's no non-existence of the tongue, non-existence of nose, and so forth. But rather, well, it is it 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 is saying that there's no such inherent existence of the nose, no such inherent existence of the eyes, tongue, and so forth.
제가 동반이 공원에 상보 모두 가정 문제 내게 베끼지 뭐래 가정 문제에서 상보 가야게 가야게 계속 요가 있는 간다지 가자도 계속 요가 있는 간다지 요래서 대이 미치서
So here now, in order to understand non-inherent existence of self, non-inherent existence of the eye, nose, and so forth, first of all, it is crucial to understand. It's crucial to know how to identify the object of negation, and how do we negate this object of negations. If that object of negation exists, and in what manner that will be existed, and how do we really, refute this object of negation. The understanding of this is very important.
가정 문제에서 상보 라기지 투바데 파가우도 라기지 뭐 투바도 주부도 제가 가자서 뭐 파가가 자야 근데 라기지 투바도 파가우 제가 다 라기지 투바세지 연나 간에 주요래 세도 무슨 제도.
So what we are actually refuting here is we're refuting inherent existence of self and phenomena. That is what we are refuting. And what we are establishing here is we're establishing by negating this negating the inherent existence of the self and phenomena is to non-inherent existence of self and phenomena established.
가자데 야보지 문제 토이나 안에 돈이야 고안해야돼 그다리 버려서 뭐죠 다 가자데 지나 요 말에 근데 가자데 요 말에 가자 시절은 봐서 보고 요래 이내 다 소소기 르물에 계속 요 이나서 다 다도 먹겠어 그러다 계속 지난도 요 말인데 계속 요 이나
So because identification of this object of negation is very, very important, because without identifying the object of negation, then emptiness or non-inherent existence doesn't make much sense to us. So therefore, first of all, we need to identify the object of negations. What is to be negated must be identified. If such object of negation, if it exists, in what manner this will be exist? Will it be the real existence, or it is just mere, construct by one's negative thoughts, or construct by one's, wrong thoughts and so forth. So you have to really dig into it and find the object of negations. Once you are able to identify this object of negation, and you are able to identify this, then one negate that, and as a result of negating that, then non-inherent existence of things and event will be able to establish. If there are such things as exist inherently, then it should exist by in and of itself, without depending on any other factors. Or it should exist independently, and such independent existence or inherent existence is not possible.
ane koro rangwa ma chu kwa re. Odo mungde mungu tuyo tsa tang, ane xia papa tang, jeba tang, ta cha tang, ma mo chi tswa ne, ane koro mungde chungdo, tene rima to mungde tene jen jeba tang, tene tsa tang, cha tang, tene kanya ma diba mungde mungdo wa. Tene indi mungde rangwa ni, ane yo ma re so.
So therefore, when we talk about no eyes, no tongue, no nose, and so forth, we're talking about non-inherent existence. Non-inherent, there's no here referring to the inherent existence of eyes, nose, and so forth is not existent. Because one can really examine and see how the eyes and nose and tongues are actually existing. Because the very existence of eyes and nose are dependent upon other factors. It is not something that exists by its own side. They have no existence of in and of itself, because these are all dependent upon many other factors. You know, there are many causes, there are many conditions, and there are many supporting, factors and so forth. It is due to the other factors, the eyes and tongues and nose are coming into existence.
Tene yungzo tongpa ni kongwa sambo ane teni me baji san tangyo mare rangani chube tongwa yinba ane rangani marube ane yoba sayo takata rangani chube ma yinba teni me ba ma yinba teni jimi san tangyo.
So when we are meditating on emptiness, we should not meditate on nothingness. One should not have an idea of emptiness as something that non-existence or nothingness. Rather, one should think of that non-existence, non-inherent existence, or lack of intrinsic existence. This is what we need to think of.
Rangani yoba ji kene na ane tabi tar kore rangi ji me na ane meba kene na chedar kore tani da tawa ji san tangyo.
So one should rather maintain the middle way, free from two extremes of eternalism and extremes of nihilism, or extremes of absolutism and extremes of nihilism. One should free from those two extremes and maintain the middle way.
Tada ishu tsang tanda shisha, gadi gogo chawa juya dana, anshi nga da pyoza tena ma tena sachi, tadar man dishi shu
So today we'll stop here with this, and Isha will answer answer some questions that we talked about our last session, on the last previous teachings. Some questions he said, I don't know which question, but
Kadi kurong kar na, ane mo nung bi kare ya, pajo chala chi sawa ine, te jata anju gogo re yes. Te jiri ya, ane to mo da tsewan ra na, ane chwa kawa zai me, jata dine gogo re. Ane mo da tsewan ju kare, saya ga chala de negu do was. Tene yudu, ane mo di ki chala tuwa na, ne hil tuyu tuwa, tera ra kwa kati wad. Te yudu, tena tu yung kore te tsang gi yang, kare sabare. Chi moshi teka zu tuwa la, ne hil, nipa tuyu tene ji yoga ma resa.
so we talked about this during our previous teachings. There's a question and answer session that our eye consciousness is dependent on ear consciousness and so forth, right? Because I think Andrew, right?
Yes.
You're the one who mentioned that. You said that because it is dependent, because when you close your eyes and you hear some kind of object that drops in certain place, but without looking at it, but you will able to know, you will able to identify the directions where the object is dropped. So that entails that our eye consciousness or ear consciousness are dependent. That's what you said, right? Is that right?
Yeah. It's-
So, okay, directional.
다 내 가는 데들나 와시다 이시 바람들이래. 와시다 이시 바람들이래. 제가 동보 뭐 좀이 그래 가기를 잘라다데 다지야데 다도 수준은 나시고 되네 되게 거의 이시나는 데로 그래. 이시 되게다 저 자오다 데 파셔 자다 세데 수고만 나오나 이시기 하고 그래. 근데 때 이거 하고는 쇼르드니 저거를 좀 그거 무시 되고 다 저도 무시 통으로 내게 소송 말아. 그래서 지금 이시 많이 아무도 등이 줄어서 그 다들 무시 되고 말을 저도 내게 통 말아. 근데 이제 나 그러지는 와싱하는 무싱하는 거였어 그래. 그러나 와싱한 자게 되네 또 짜다만 주고도 참아 이시래야 아니 퇴적이야. 자 대는 이시부터는 무시 시험도 엄범만자래 무시 줘요 그런 거. 근데 대벌이야 내시단 이시단 무시인데 대대부터 또 거라지네. 파글려야지만 또 대가 아니 내시단 와시니 그로 이거도 되고요 말이야. 이는 좋아요 저래.
Although there are some connections between those different sense consciousness, but it's not directly connected to that. For instance, when you close your eyes and then you hear some object that drops somewhere, right? You hear that. By hearing that, you are not just by hearing that, you are not actually seeing that object at that moment. You hear that and you know which direction and which that actual object is dropped by hearing the sound from that direction. And then you have saying, okay, this object must be there because I heard the sound of dropping that. So that you're hearing that your your ear consciousness is hearing it, but you are knowing that the object is somewhere there. This actually goes to your mental consciousness, not that it doesn't go to the eye consciousness. So by hearing it, then you have a thought of knowing that object is there, then you go that particular direction, and then finally you find an object is by your eye consciousness. So it goes to the mental consciousness, and mental consciousness, the eye consciousness itself will not become a mental consciousness, in other words. But however, in the tantric system, where it says 5 sense consciousness can become a clairvoyance by the practice. It says because five sense consciousness can have a direct access to the mental consciousness, so that they can, by the practice of calm abiding in accordance with the tantric, when the tantric way of calm abiding, one will be able to achieve clairvoyance of sense consciousness, but which is not actually mentioned in the sutra system, which is completely different.
That's interesting.
So I don't know if this is so, just a question. So then would the incense in a temple be a nose consciousness that would have a, almost like an emotion, emotional? When you smell the incense
Mhm.
from a certain temple,
Uh-huh.
what you would have an appearance in your mind of something. I don't know how to ask the question, sorry.
Okay.
There's a slight objection, because we are taught that there is no inherent existence. And if there is no inherent existence, there is also, should be, no inherent existence of the senses.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, if there's no inherent existence of the senses, then they must be dependent on, they're not able to be isolated, they're dependent on other factors, such as one sense being
Other sense.
impacted by another.
Mm.
And so the world of objects which we make for ourselves really has no actual reality.
Absolutely.
It's more an event. And we could call it the seeing event. The seeing event is made up of many different factors.
Absolutely.
Is that, am I correct in that
Yeah.
understanding?
这样子，其实那边到全能单边，看到就让进去嘛，这个强我了是，公园里面去，让我里面去强我了是，就是这些的，这边的加了的嘛啥边的，加了的让我里面不能进去，加了的用这个写吧，那加了啥边。这就过了，这特别是今年的这年限，这让人们这个话是，当然这每个些不得让人们这个讲过是，过加上过让人们都当的，过现在对的这个在公园里面是的，对的这个在公园里面是过的，就是对的这边上呢，他那些的他读些的他可能是的他看的那些的。毕竟，我们那位写不学了吧？年纪，这些不得太好吧？那就我不闲里啊，对不起，让我的买账可闲了对不？闲了对是的，我不闲了对吧？我是闲了对不起，我这边是的，我这说些了。
等到这村里的那些人啊，那些的写了对看了对呢。저런 날씨 돼야 돼. 아무 신다를 뛰는 날이 좋아져야 돼. 날씨 그럼 대가 가는 데 내 양보를 뛰대로. 내 양보를 뛰대로 땡대로. 저내 양보를 맞으면 내지 유식 말아. 저 때는 저단에 내 양보 제 양보 하는 무엇이든 날씨 뒤에 샤초래. 얘는 대가 그럼 가는 뛰대야 되는 날씨 내 양보를 내가 뛰대로.
So yes, although this pure consciousness or high consciousness is not inherent existence, that doesn't mean they are depending upon each other. They are dependent. Pure consciousness dependent on. Although in some case, it become independent. Depends on the circumstances.
Yeah.
But their direct dependence is their own faculty. They have their own faculty. Ear consciousness has its own faculty, eye consciousness has its own faculty, dependent upon their own faculty. They are directly dependent upon their own faculties.
But when I see something, that sight is made up of many different aspects, many different things come in to the eyes. And the mind puts all of those pieces together and constructs an image. But that image that's constructed has nothing to do with what's out there. It's a mental construct. And as a mental construct, it's not a reality. It's not a thing, it's a construct. And because it's a construct, as the Heart Sutra says, it doesn't actually exist in a way that we think it does. My view of the world is made up of pieces, it's not like a photograph. And those pieces can be assembled in any order or any pattern. We all agree somewhat that the world out there we have a commonality of vision. but it's not the same for everybody.
Uh-huh.
And if somebody, it says in the sutra, if you have jaundice and your eye is
Yeah.
yellow,
Yeah.
things all take on a yellow tinge. So there's
But the yellowish is not there, yeah.
the hallucinations are happening all the time. But it's because the world is made up of parts and pieces, and the mind puts those pieces together. Even with hearing, you hear many disparate things, and your hearing puts those pieces together and kind of paints a picture. And the same is with all the senses. So my feeling is that all of the senses play a part all together in putting these pieces into the mind that then one's mind
Mind constructs.
constructs
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and we call that reality, but it actually doesn't exist.
Okay.
There is no thingness about anything.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah,
my idea.
I'll talk. Today, 정부 student, 당연히 또 디시오 그래서 기술하나. 그런데 스카너 시대래셔. 즉, 미시엘이야. 소가 가도 입어서 말아 심신한 걸 봤어. 미시엘. 미기 시작이야. 가도다 소다 이기를 다 면나서 멍신한 걸 봤어. 나 여기 가야 너무 나지 제제 소소 미시엘 너무 나지 제제. 그러면 저 나서 보신 바 소소 나버 가야. 다들 나는데 근데 저 레샤세 비게야. 또왜야 되지 로버 왔을 때 레샤 간다. 그 집에는 그 가버리시 마을 땅고리시 지지 간데 집다 근데 주주레샤 주섬레샤 사람 또 고발해서 지지 또왜 직소वर 왔어. 제가 또왜 소원이 가냐. 또왜 소원데 그 또왜 세븐나진지 비게 요말 왔어. 그거도 요말 왔어. 그럼 비게 그 디세면 그거 메시지 지 간레게 왜서를 줬다. 그래서 그거 도시 이해가 받아. 그러니까 그 도시 뒤에다 간다 그 미시기 통나진지 또왜 도시 제에서 냐면지 디바 또왜 봐서지 도시 뒤에 샤세랑 당다. 뒤에 간다 문제지 지 샤워로 봤어. 그 뭐인데서 디 요말 봤어. 뭐인데서 도시 세랑 다 뒤에 내려서 더 진짜 유고로 매서를 시작했고 그 라진 좀마다 많이 좀 이렇게 시행도 그 세션이 그런 매서를 그 리얼리티스도 그 뭐인데서 그 매서를
근데 레니 있다는 쇼라 저는 무슨 무시리야 이나 가도 뭐지 됐지래야 나 용거리 되는데요 그어 이로고 또 받았더니 예제라 가지 되는데요 프린지니 또고지 요래 무슨 뭐보고 나네 아무지도 뭐지 가지 토니 용거도 다들 무슨 말이야 그 나라만 요러 나라만 요 그래 근데 예수들 하고 저기 집에 다니는 예수들 tane yore lamuzo mon kano samade nekinde to mara tane so do baje tabaji tane muskan to ajuya tane ji yo mare samade shu.
So now here let's begin with this. When our eye consciousness, when the objects, the different kinds of objects that appears to our eye consciousness, such as this type of different colors, different shapes, and so on, right? All this. And similarly, we also hear all kinds of sounds, many different sounds from many different directions. We are all hearing all this, right? Hearing sounds and all this. So now, more that although that there are many, objects such as color in a shape that appears to one's eye consciousness, but there's a one particular object that become a main object of this particular eye consciousness, main object. Similarly, the sound too. you are hearing all kind of sounds from a different directions. But there's a one sound, what we call it, the main object that has been heard. And so therefore we have in the basic, the Buddhist mind and mental factor studies where it calls Nalamangivigo. It appears but not ascertained, in other words. Appears but not ascertained. You have not gained ascertainment of that particular things. For instance, when one's mind is completely attached towards one particular object, and you are for so strong, become so obsessive and attached to that particular object, but at the same time you hear somebody saying something, but you are not actually ascertaining and you are not understanding the word what this person is saying because you're completely focused on that object. So this is also one thing.
다음 얘는 나와요. 근데 제 가보나 보이는 그걸 주인이나 앞에는 그거를 보신 나고요나 그거에 문 나와나게 유열이야 말해서 그냥 다들 대신 니스 쳐버려. 그러면서 가져가야 안에 나신인가 해봐. 나와요 정신 봐봐. 나신인가 해봐 사나시. 당고도 뭐시 그거에 나오도 상고 나나시 매성도 갈로는 뭐시 나고 근데 라면이 좋아지 나요 그래서 라면이 좋아지 나요 또 나와 나게 바가 라면 좋아지 보고 열면 이 말해서 대형이지나 나나이 매스라죠. 아 나히니가 매대가 좀 나와도 싶으니까 매비다 나도 줘라. 라면이 마저 거기 나 줘라. 대나오는 줘는 나나게 요새
So now let's look at the object that applies to our high consciousness. For instance, the object, let's take the square box that applies to the box, the shape of square box that applies to one's eye consciousness. When it applies to your consciousness, then one can say that conventionally this box appears to your consciousness exists as it is. And ultimately, if you think that this box really exists, one can say then again here, and ultimately, it doesn't really exist, it doesn't really exist as it appears to our consciousness. Why, how do you say this? And then one can answer this question by saying that it doesn't make, because although it appears to one's eye consciousness as if that box exists by in and of itself, inherent existence. But however, this doesn't exist in that way. So in the ultimate sense. So conventionally the box without undergoing any analysis, the box that is there, that appears, it is there.
Yeah, well, the same could be said of a mountain. We see a mountain, and we assume that mountain is a thing. It's big, but that's only one point in time of that mountain. The mountain in the time scale of the mountain, once it was an ocean, and then it gets pushed up out of the ocean, and it decays and goes back into the ocean.
It is open.
And for the box, we have to assume that the box once was not there.
Yeah.
It becomes a box and then it decays.
Yeah.
So in the sense that we assume that things are real, they really are not. It's one frame of the picture of existence. And that's how I think of that particular problem, is that we always are freezing things in one moment in time. But really, the reality is not that. The reality is
That's a very good
objects,
question. Yeah.
Coming and going, and particularly for mountains. Because we assume that mountains are solid
Yeah,
until there's an earthquake or things change, and then we see a little bit more of the time of the mountain. But in the long term things are moving and changing everywhere. So the assumption of objects is really false. That's the
그거는 내 들으셔. 답변은 근데 무슨 본주다 먼저 직 소소야 직다 두시 당저 두시 바로 감 두시 두시를 제시하는 감 두시의 소소 나오지. 두시 나오면 되고 옆지 두시라 있는데 그 나오면 하고 두시 뭐니 여기 두시 뭐니 되면서 또 뭐니 또 되면서 영원히 두서 걸어다 간다. 영원히 두면 돼. 근데 두시 이면 되고서 옆지. 그때 또 대체로 되나지 다이네다 다디네 거야 고바스도 센도베나 다 두시에 성의 거야 두시디 고 두시 차야데 고 두시 고 통만에 고 두시 없지만 와서 좋아 고 근데 직다 신기 감으시면은 고 당고 되네 예를 디 두시 맞아 공원이야 공원이고 빨리 차대요 와서 빨리 디 공원이야 고 신으로 와셔야 돼 신냐 저가想不想 대권에 또 스파데도는 답의 신기 한 신기 요구마 와서 배터라다 배터마 데이터에 여러 성공 계속도 단단한 집에는 또 강리스 거다 근데 리시움인데 먼저 매직 소소 때리가 그냥 리디다 되고 수준이 되죠 옆이 연구를 되네 리디 자연의 고들에 먹고 싶은지 도대체 뭐야 좀지 아니고 개소기 거리 왕기야 리 도대체 뭐야 당시 되네 리디야 차이로 다 강리네 다 가리네 대체도 차지 근데 딱 간전진이야 리디야 딱 자자마 고 지야 고 매우차야 그냥 두수실이 걸어봤어 손전다 대가는 수준 삼당고 말서 간다 집도 고 리에다 고 리고베 답 고베 the 균내네 고 교육인 면에대해 서로인데 또 알아서 근데 시간에다 무슨 심자르지
말해. 제다래. 제가 먼저 라문이 매서야 되죠. 라문이 요나 바다데 때는이에요. 제가 먼저 신부인데 이제 바다데 때나 안 담아 가는 그래. 가면 배네 그래. 제가 대도 많이 내 때다. 제가 다음에도 라문이 말도 인생이 되죠. 다시 제나는 방법에서 뭐는 내주네요 말해. 제가 내는데 라문이 또 만들려고 이제 또 그래.
So this is how we always need to analyze ourselves and how things are based on how things really are. And then, when things that are based on us without undergoing any analysis, and there are things that actually exist, but when you go undergo critical analysis of how those things come into being. For instance, let's take a table that is made out of wood, and it was not a table in the beginning, it was a lumber. And then if you place the lumber in a tree, and then it will go to the sprout of the tree and go to the seeds and so on. So if you go through, causes and conditions, analyze each and every part of this table, then the table becomes unfindable. And that practice of the very unfindability is understanding of this unfindability will take us closer towards understanding of emptiness. Please first stop here with this.
Yeah.
Are we going to change the pages?
Yes, I think it's designation back. How did I teach you again?
Where's our teacher?
Raje Chari Gomanyo Tosho.
Yedam Guru
Rena Mandala Yandi Anayami.
Then near into